Hello, 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 everyone. This is Dr. Garrett Smith, also known as the nutrition detective around these here YouTube parts. Let me aim this down just a wee bit more. There we go. Okay, so here we are. And we are here back this week again with episode number 225. We have a special guest today, Greg Mushen, and we're going to talk about his cool research on all sorts of topics that are related. He's kind of like, for those of you who are into the Love Your Liver program and all these concepts that we do, he really, as you'll see if you decide to go pursue his Twitter threads, he really goes into the mechanisms and the details and all that stuff. So for those of you who are mechanism nerds, you'll really enjoy this stuff. And so first I wanted to go over just a couple house cleaning things for those of you who are watching right now or who catch this today. And I'm assuming unlike last week's episode where I said some naughty words that the Gestapo around here don't like, we had to take it down right away so it doesn't get a strike and put it back up again. So if you're looking for last week's episode, it'll be under the videos tab. It's not going to be under the live tab, okay? Or you can always find the full unedited version over on Rumble. So always remember, it's all on Rumble. Sometimes we have to take it down here because I slip up and I say things that I know are not okay or I suspect are not okay. So we gotta fix that. Anyway, so on to our once a year sale on supplements. It ends tonight, November 18th at midnight. So if you want to get 15% off, and yes, this goes for you Love Your Liver members too, who already get discounts in the VIP store. So the regular shop and the VIP store, you get 15% off Nutrition Detective brand products until midnight, Arizona time. So that's MST. So whatever time it is for you, you got to figure that out. I don't know, but there's no extension. So get it in early. Okay, so there's that. Now I wanted to address one thing about our zinc salve. We reformulated the zinc salve and we got it back out again because it's one of people's favorite products that Kelsey came up with. And we'll be going over a cool study in a second on MSG, another topic that Kelsey brought to our attention. But the zinc salve. Listen, folks. If you want a natural product that is based in fats and oils, there's not a bunch of like emulsifiers in it and other, kind of semi-natural things that thin it out that make it like the cosmetic products you find in the store. So the zinc salve, we did thicken it. Part of that was because some of you folks out there chose to use too much of it. Like you were putting it on your whole face. Like that's not, can you do that? Yes. It's not a sunscreen. It's not a lotion. It's a salve. It is meant to treat problem areas. So it's thick, it's solid. It's not solid, but it's thick. Okay. So it's not too hard to use. Okay. Joe, yes. It's not too hard to use. People are complaining of that because they're just used to, stuff from the Walgreens that is all like synthetic. Just take some of it out, use your finger. If you got little baby fingers, then use a tip of a butter knife, take some out, put it on your palm, and let it warm up. That's how oils get softer, right? You put butter in your palm, it's going to melt. Butter was solid, then it's going to melt. Okay, shea butter is in this. Put it in your palm, it's going to warm up, it's going to melt. Okay, so just the zinc salve works amazing as it always has. We're trying to help you out there not use too much and make it a little, and it actually rubs in better now and it's less grainy. So we did improve the formulation. You just got to know that it's made with some real saturated fats in there. So it is hard and especially in these cold months. As it gets colder, it's going to get harder. So you just warm it up, right? Just like you would set butter out on the counter instead of keeping it in the fridge if you were going to use it. Not that we use a lot of butter in this program, just as an example that everybody knows. Okay. So there's that. And yes, that's on special too, if you use the code. So let's get into this quick MSG study that Kelsey made me aware of. Those of you out there, if you haven't seen the MSG live stream, you should watch it. And what you're about to see is really quite amazing. So Joe, I'm gonna bring it up Let me get back to the top. Okay, so let me make it a little bigger. This is the paper, 2015 paper. Now, I want you to understand before we go into this, folks, MSG, monosodium glutamate, is monosodium just means one sodium. Doesn't mean anything special. Mono is one, right? Monosodium bound to a glutamic acid, L-glutamic acid. So it's sodium bound to L-glutamic acid. Just like table salt is monosodium, one sodium, sodium chloride, bound to a chloride molecule, okay? And both of these things, when they go into fluids, a food, water, your body, they dissociate into, one is sodium and glutamic acid, one is sodium and chloride. So they're very similar in that way. So when we go into glutamic acid in this, you need to know that if you're using MSG, you're taking glutamic acid. You're taking it with a sodium bound. And what does the sodium do? It buffers it, like we talk about with buffered flush niacin. So anyway, evaluation of the effects of charge. So actually, well, let me back up one more thing. Joe, I don't know if you can find the live stream where we went over seizures. I have a whole live stream on seizures. Low vitamin A diets have shown amazing results in seizures, both in my experience and case studies in the literature. Okay. So we have literal proof, and then I go over some of the research in the in that video. So here's the paper, evaluation of the effects of charged amino acids on uncontrolled seizures. Glutamic acid, or glutamate, folks, is an amino acid, a charged amino acid. We're talking about uncontrolled seizures here. So let's go to the next one, the next highlight. So how many people were in here? 45 patients were studied, of whom 13 individuals were excluded. They were not included due to experiencing nausea and vomit and refusing cooperation resulting from tastelessness or undesirable taste of arginine. So note it wasn't the glutamate or the glutamic acid. It was the arginine. And those of you who have had arginine, you know that it has a pretty significant taste. So they had 32 patients left, okay? So 32 patients. I believe they split them into 3 groups. Here's the chart that we are most interested in. So these people had uncontrolled seizures. I want you to pay attention to what MSG, basically, the active ingredients of MSG, which is glutamate or glutamic acid, did. And arginine, because arginine will be important as they discuss later in the paper. So we have the amino acid. This is how many, so we have the amino acid, we have the number of subjects in each group. We have the number of seizures, the rate of seizure attacks. So they're saying in a week, these people had 23.6 seizures on average. I will just say that to make it simple, plus or minus 16.2 in a week. Okay. And the glutamic acid had 31.3 and a bigger standard deviation. So before starting, there was this. The first week on the arginine down to 21.6. The glutamate didn't change much at all, really. But the second week, look at this. So arginine brought it down from 23.6 to 11.2. And glutamic acid, the active ingredient of MSG, brought it down from 31.3 to 18.54. Okay. And as Greg, who's very into research, will attest to, these p-values are very, very good considering how few subjects there are. Very difficult to get a high p-value when you have very few subjects. So let me go to the last part on this about the arginine. Let's see. So as I go over in the MSG live stream, glutamate can actually be made from many amino acids in the body. And like a lot of people don't know, your liver enzymes actually literally are made by your liver to increase glutamate in your body from other amino acids. So what do they say? How did the arginine help? The effectiveness of arginine in reducing seizure frequency may be due to the increase of glutamate level rather than the direct intervention of arginine itself. As the participants of the present study in the 2 groups of glutamic acid and arginine show no significant difference in terms of age and sex distribution. 2 products of arginine, glutamic acid and agmatine, may be involved for anticonvulsant effects of arginine. So they're basically saying the arginine reduced seizures, possibly because it converts to glutamate, and obviously the glutamate reduced seizures because it's glutamate. Okay, so wanted to go over that one. And then their conclusion: administration of arginine and glutamic acid can be effective in reducing the seizure frequency of uncontrolled epilepsy patients without triggering considerable complications. So for those of you out there, let's say you have a friend or a loved one who has seizures, and let's just say they're not interested in doing low vitamin A. Well, these people weren't doing low vitamin A. They're just doing glutamic acid. Now, glutamic acid is a lot like nicotinic acid in terms of it's an acid. So if you take a lot of it, it also doesn't taste good on food. MSG tastes good on food. Glutamic acid is glutamic acid. There's no sodium with it. It doesn't taste the same. But also glutamic acid is an acid. It's not buffered. MSG is already buffered for you. Okay, so that's why we would suggest if you're going to use it on your food, you use MSG. Ajinomoto or Modernist Pantry is said to be tastier than Ajinomoto by several people. So that's one you can try. But yeah, so we have, it reduces the seizure frequency of uncontrolled epilepsy patients without triggering considerable complications. Gosh, did they just say that glutamate didn't cause considerable complications in an already compromised neurological group of people? Don't believe the histrionic people out there claiming that glutamate is bad for you. Glutamate is the most abundant neurotransmitter in your body. They have no idea what they're talking about. They're quoting rat studies where they gave the rats tons of MSG in water, and anybody in the research field knows that that is exactly how you cause problems with MSG, like if you were trying to show that it was bad. But when it's taken with food in humans at normal amounts, they can't find any problems. So, oh wow, hold on. Let me. So we're going to get to Greg in just a second. Greg, thank you for waiting, but I wanted to say this. This was a comment down there by Russ0107. Hi, Dr. Smith. I got married last weekend thanks to you. Well, I mean, you're welcome. It's not what I set out to do necessarily, but I'm all for it. So congratulations. So on that note, we've had very interesting things happen with people who are working with me. So now we have the marriage, we have people fixing their fertility, whether it's men or women, and getting pregnant. And then this is another thing Julie started noticing in our early years in practice, when we were doing the hair testing and stuff like that, that she would have women married or in relationships tell her about, let's say they were being abused. Well, she actually, as they worked with me and they got their health better, several of these women, we had multiple women report back to Julie that they had decided to leave their abusive relationships, probably because they were mentally stronger and they felt able to do so. So we have seen both people come together, new people from this work, people come together from this work, and people who needed to separate, make that happen from this work. So it's, the better your brain works, folks, the better everything works. So, oh, that's Trusty Rusty. He has a new name. So yes, Trusty Rusty has been in the comments for a very long time. So hi, Trusty Rusty. Thank you for confirming who you were. So, okay, so let's get into this now. Let's get into our special guest. So let me just a quick little intro. I was on Twitter, and just so you guys know who are on Twitter, I'm not very active on Twitter right now because Twitter's really forcing the algorithm to make people look at things they don't want to look at. Like, they're trying to make everybody political and trying to rage bait everybody, and it's just getting tired and old. And some people will say, oh, you just delete what you don't want to see and tell them you don't want to see this. And I'm like, I shouldn't have to tell Twitter what I like. They know exactly what I like. They're forcing it on me what I don't like. So anyway, and some people were even saying, somebody replied on Twitter when I made a tweet about it. They said, it seems like the more you dislike certain things on Twitter, the more it shows it to you. So I'm just, that site is, I tend to be an early adopter, which also means I tend to leave places that are falling apart quickly. And I've noticed several other people are getting tired of Twitter lately. So anyway, let's get into it. So Greg, I I met Greg Mushen on Twitter because he was posting really cool. I don't know if it was the first thread I saw of his was his apocalypse mobile, which we'll go over today. But then he started posting on things like how important potassium is. And he was going into mechanisms and all of this stuff. And he posted about fiber and how important soluble fiber is, and how when people do super low carb diets or carnivore diets, how they starve out the bifido and they literally change their gut biome. And this can be a natural process, but when people stick themselves in it for a long time, it can cause problems. And then there was also his emphasis on lots of low intensity movement. And you guys know I've been talking about this lately, about how important it is at whatever level of your recovery you're moving within your tolerance levels. Now, I made sure Greg knows that we have a lot of people who are really unwell. And so, we'll talk a little bit about higher level exercise, but for those of you out there, when we're talking about low level movement, he's going to talk about just walking and things of that nature. So don't think that you have to be hardcore about any of it. So anyway, so let's bring on Greg. Hi, Greg. How you doing?
Hey, doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for waiting through my little intro.
So you bet.
So I remember, actually, I think I remember seeing you posting about like rucking and like sled dragging. I think those were the things that actually brought us. Did you post about that?
Yeah, probably.
So yeah, I remember seeing that and I was like, wow, this is really cool. And because I was into rucking at the time. I think I put a bag of sand in a backpack and it was about 50 pounds and I would walk around.
Oh, wow.
Now I'm just doing I found a 25-pound weight vest on Amazon that was inexpensive and it just works really well. And it's more comfortable than the backpack. But anyway, so I saw your stuff on exercise and stuff like that first. And then I think I saw the apocalypse mobile. And then all of a sudden you went into the health stuff and I was like, we are really aligned on this, which is really cool.
I've always felt that way too.
Yeah. So one of the things, Joe will be posting, folks, if you want. Joe, if maybe we should, we'll put those links in the info box below after the show, or Joe will post it in a comment and I'll pin it later so you guys can find the links to his threads. So let's, we got a lot of threads I asked Greg to give us the threads. So you'll have links to the threads. But first, Greg, one of the things I say in our program is that the quickest way for people to feel better is to typically improve their potassium status or increase their potassium level overall. And I know you get a ton of potassium. So let me have you head and tell us your perspective on potassium and how important it is and where it helps.
Yeah, potassium's incredibly important for a lot of different reasons. But you could kind of think of each cell as almost like a battery. And batteries run off of energy gradients. And that's how our cells run too. But instead of using lithium ion, what it's using is sodium and potassium. So that creates kind of the energy gradient that can be necessary. So yeah, Dr. Garrett said, one of the things that you can do to improve energy levels, everything, is just get more potassium. And it's interesting, we were thought to. There's been some research that suggests that we used to get up to like 10 grams per day, which is pretty crazy. So we would just be getting tons of potassium all the time. And now that's reversed. So we're getting much more sodium, a lot less potassium. And this can have pretty big effects long term. And one of the biggest effects is with arterial stiffness. And so if you keep your potassium level high enough, that's associated with very supple endothelia and arteries longer term. And it used to be that we thought that was just something that happened with age. And within the last 5 years, we now know that that's not true, that we can modify and keep our arteries supple as we age. And the two primary modalities, and we'll talk about walking later, but walking and potassium are the two biggest levers.
Yeah, well, actually, some things that I've seen. So I always wondered about that 10,000 milligrams a day of potassium, that stuff in the research, because I've told this story before, like why they won't sell higher dose potassium supplements these days. Is I remember back in the day, there was I call them the original paleotards, where they said, I'm not totally against a paleo like the idea of paleo is great. The way modern people do it is a disaster.
Yeah.
So what they did was they saw that research and they said, okay, cavemen didn't salt their food and they got 10,000 milligrams of potassium a day. And also there was this idea of you could cleanse if you took, just like if you took enough magnesium, you will get diarrhea, and people think that's cleansing, right? People also learned, you can take enough salt to give yourself diarrhea. You can take enough potassium to give yourself diarrhea. And so people thought, oh, we're going to do this caveman thing and do like a potassium flush or whatever you want to call it and not eat any salt and do it with supplements. And then they ended up in the hospital.
Oh my
gosh. I think there was probably at least a death or two, but the lowest amount of sodium I saw send somebody to the hospital in the case studies was, I think, 10 or 11,000 milligrams of potassium in a day. So it does speak to maybe there is a sodium balance to it, right? You could take too much potassium without sodium, and you can take too much sodium without potassium. Most people these days are getting way more sodium, as you mentioned. And the other thing I wanted to mention about the arterial stiffness, since you brought that up. So we come at these things from different angles, which is pretty cool. But in the research, like hypercalcemia, like too much calcium, is associated with hypokalemia. And so one can kind of cause the other. Well, hypercalcemia, I mean, that's what vitamin D does. Vitamin D raises calcium in the blood, and it literally lowers potassium. Copper tends to cause a potassium deficiency. A lot of my people who have copper toxicity, their symptoms, if you looked at copper toxicity symptoms and you look at potassium deficiency symptoms, they're the same thing. So which one is it, right? And then if we're talking about arterial stiffness, if some of that aspect is calcification, and potassium seems to counteract some of it. You see the connection, right? So we have the potassium and the calcium are kind of, I don't want to say fighting each other, but they're kind of antagonistic. So if we get more potassium, in theory, that helps the hypercalcemia to get more in the middle. So all these things, that's what I liked about Greg's work, was he came at it from different angles, and I was going, well, that makes sense in like my like, I tend to look at it from a larger, just like functional perspective of like, what is it actually doing? That's really all I care about. And Greg was going into the detailed like mechanisms, and I just went, okay, that makes sense. So yeah, Joe's posting the potassium links to the Twitter threads. You guys are probably not going to want to read them right now because they're dense. They're like
they are dense.
So they're like my threads. That's probably one of the reasons we get along too. So before we move on, well, Greg, how much potassium do you tend to get in a day? I've seen the number on Twitter, but I want you to say.
Yeah. So I usually try to get between 5 and 6 grams, which is quite a lot. I think RDA, I believe, is 3 grams or something like that.
Well, Institute of Medicine actually says 4,700.
4,700. Yeah. Well, that's right in line. Yeah. I think that's a great target if you can do it. I think, the ratios probably more important. It's about 2 or 3 times the amount of sodium that you're getting, and you'll be kind of right in the pocket. The closer you can get to 3, the better.
Yeah. Well, so again, we're like right in line, even though we came at these things from different angles. So I tell people, like, a great goal would be when people are sick. Some people don't tolerate potassium really well. Like a lot of extra, especially supplements are, sketchy for some people. They don't agree with everybody. But well, actually, before we go further, what are you getting that 5,000 to 6,000 milligrams of potassium from?
So it's almost entirely from food. Well, actually, it is entirely from food. But I tend to try to really simplify things and just make it easy. So what I try to do is get one solid potassium source per meal. And so my go-tos are bananas, which are really high, avocados, which are incredibly high, and then we both share a love of beans.
Yep.
But Great Northern beans are really high in potassium. And so I think in one of these threads, I have a recipe for a chili that I make. It has Great Northern beans in it, and I cool it, which we'll probably go into when we talk about fiber.
Did you say, what did you?
I make chili with it.
No, but what was that last ingredient?
Oh, I cool it. So I put it in the fridge.
Cool it.
Yeah.
I swear I heard you say Cool Whip, and I was like,
oh, Cool Whip. Cool Whip chili.
I was like, that's interesting. You're gonna make a white chili, I guess. No.
Yeah. And then another great source is just coconut water. And so I'll usually try to time that, because it does have some sugar in it. So I'll usually try to time that after workouts or after I walk or.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. Like you picked, the potassium sources that you're mentioning, especially bananas and coconut water and white beans are like staples, are potassium staples, kind of in the love your liver approach. So that's really funny. Avocado, I tell people, like, some people just want to eat avocado all the time, all day. And it's just, it is a very high source of fat. And I know we're kind of similar on not overdoing the fat. And then it does have some vitamin A in it. So for people in our program who really want to recover faster, it's not going to be something you want to make a regular thing, but it's also not one of the worst things you could do. I mean, the light green color of it is not terrible. The issue with it is it has been avocado oil, and avocado has been shown to raise carotenoids in the blood. So it's bringing more in. I mean, we absorb vitamin A through fats. So we pick our battles. So for those who are a little bit further along in the program, or if you're just going to have some guacamole or some avocado sometime, I want to tell you guys, I'm not worried about it. Just don't make it a daily thing is our thing. So the big things we tend to add to that is we make a 50-50 salt. So it's half sodium, half potassium.
Oh, that's a great idea.
So then you can just add that. And then I need to post the recipe, but Kelsey came up with she calls it the 50-50 super salt, where she's added some MSG to it. So then you have, it's even better. So
I should note, when I do eat avocado, and I try to limit it, it's, maybe like half an avocado per day. But I'll try to pair it with red meat. And the reason why is I found this study that showed that there was like acute inflammation when you eat red meat.
Okay.
But that can be counteracted by adding a little avocado.
Wow. Can you send me that study?
I'll send it to you. I'll find you that study. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, that's interesting. That's where sometimes in the program where people say, why do we not eat this food, or why is this food okay, even though it's got vitamin A? There's other reasons to why we pick the foods. Like, it's not just all vitamin A. We're beyond that. Like, it's not just the Grant Genereux prison diet of rice, beans, and so that's the potassium thing. So yeah, 5 to 6 grams a day. So on the ratio thing. So I did a whole potassium episode. And as I went along in the potassium episode, I was saying the ratio is more important than the absolute amounts. Of course, you need a minimal amount in a day. However, if you start getting into the higher amounts, then the ratio becomes more important. And that I tell people at, I tend to give minimums. I say at the very, very minimum, you want to get at least as much sodium as potassium. At the very, very minimum. Most people aren't even doing that, as you know.
Yeah.
And then we shoot for it. People say, well, what do we shoot for? I say at least twice would be great. And you're saying up to 3 times. I'm okay with that. That's probably not very much salt in your food, though, right?
Well, that's actually one of the reasons why I do it. I like salt.
So you can add more salt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the MSG helps with that too, because you get more flavor out of less sodium.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah.
There's actually stuff in the research where they're trying to, the people who understand that MSG is not harmful, where they're saying the more MSG you add to your food, the more you can reduce the salt. And I think salt was something like 43% sodium, and MSG is something like 20% sodium. So you can get a lot more mileage out of MSG than you can out of salt, and it makes the salt go further. So that is one way to reduce.
That makes a lot of sense. We have there are all these studies that kind of evaluate taste and salt, and it's like 0.7 it's like between 0.5 and 0.7% of salt by weight is what kind of the sweet spot for taste. But that would make a lot more sense that you could go lower in sodium if you added the MSG, because we have receptors on our tongue for that too.
Yeah. Well, I'm probably gonna work on one of the next supplements, if you want to call it, that we're gonna work on will be that super salt. So we'll be making it so people don't have to. Some people don't want to do the kitchen lab and stuff and mix things up. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So then we have, what else do we have? Anything else on potassium you want to add before we move on?
Actually, there is one thing, which is, and I think I included a link to the study, but there's a study on the Chimane. And so they're this population, they live in South America, and they're pretty isolated and remote, but very, very high potassium because they eat a lot of tubers. I think their diet's like 70% carbs, but they have the best cardiometabolic health as a population that we've ever seen. And they walk basically 17,000 steps a day through this hilly jungle. They get a lot of good fiber, but they have the arterial stiffness that's equivalent to master's level ultra marathoners. So they basically just, their arteries aren't really aging.
Yeah, that's one of the cool things that's like you're bringing up is, so here in the West, right, we've got like the keto crazy people and everything's fat and all that stuff, and you go and as you're saying, we go and you look at, as you said, subsistence populations or other populations that are not westernized, and we see tons of potassium, we see tons of plant foods. Like there's still meat, of course, but they've got lots of plant foods, and then they've got tons of fiber and tons of potassium. And and this is where, when people really, I believe, honestly look into our work and they're not coming at it from one of these weird Western newfangled diets, then they start going, wait, this all aligns. I had somebody tell me that our diet was very much like a really traditional Russian diet. And so it's people who just argue against beans and all this stuff, and they say anti-nutrients and all this. I go, do they exist? Yes. But it's not like life is a battle, a chemical warfare battle, and
I love
survival of the fittest. So we gotta pick our battles somewhere. And fiber helps. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
there are ways to limit those anti-nutrients too, with beans, soaking overnight if you can, and then pressure cooking. Yep.
My boy's gotten into rice recently, and so I taught him about, we do a charcoal soak. So like at least 20 minutes of putting the rice in water with charcoal, because charcoal's been shown to pull arsenic out of wastewater. So we just use it on the rice, and it pulls it out. And people who do that in my program, we don't see the arsenic rise on their hair test like we normally would if people just ate rice.
Cool. I need to start doing that.
Yeah, and the soaking the beans, like you could even do that. I don't know what might be in beans that the charcoal would soak up, but the charcoal's kind of, like it selects the most toxic things that it can grab onto via it's the charge, the electrostatic charge of it. So it would just grab whatever. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to do charcoal with your beans if you just wanted to either. So that's potassium. So some of the stuff you wrote on that was really the most interesting, as we kind of just hit on, is fiber, and we'll tie it to the gut biome. So let's just hit on all that. I know you put like 5 threads.
I put 5 threads. I'm kind of obsessed with fiber. So I think there's a big misconception about fiber, because when people think about fiber, they tend to think roughage. Oh, that's all it's doing. It's just roughage. But there are different types of fiber, and that kind of fiber is insoluble fiber, and we do need some of that. But the more important one is soluble fiber, and that's the really important one. And the reason why it's important is the microbiome will take that fiber, the soluble fiber, and it will ferment it down into short chain fatty acids. And this is one of the only ways that you can get short chain fatty acids into the microbiome. So what those short chain fatty acids are doing is really just signaling. And so there's all of these different things that they signal, but the 2 important ones are what's called HDAC. And what HDAC kind of controls, it controls a couple different things. But one of the things that it will do is, if you inhibit it, so if you give it these short chain fatty acids, it's going to inhibit HDAC. And once HDAC is inhibited, the tight junctions in the gut are going to start coming together, which is really, really important. You want tight junctions in your gut. When you remove fiber, it'll do the opposite. So your gut, it will start, expanding the tight junctions. So that's a really, really important thing for, a lot of different reasons. But you want to have tight junctions in your gut lining. It's the size of a cell is how thin it is. So, you do not want that to get permeable. And by the way, this can happen in days. Your microbiome can shift in 3 days if you remove fiber. And one of the reasons why I think that might happen, this is just my personal theory, by the way, it's not backed by any science, but one of the reasons why I think that might happen is it's like an environmental detector. And so it's sensing the food availability in our environment, and it's shifting things in our body so that it's more resilient for that environment. So if it's summer and fall and there are lots of plants growing, you're going to have a lot of food availability. And so what it's going to signal to your body is, let's bring insulin resistance down, because you've got plenty of glucose in the environment. You don't really need that. Let's bring inflammation down, and then let's give you some signals so that your hunger is suppressed, because otherwise you're going to eat everything. And so that's another thing that it does. I'm sure everybody has heard of GLP-1. So that's the active ingredient, the active peptide, and things like, Ozempic. But what that does is it's going to limit our hunger. And so when you eat soluble fiber, that's going to be one of the things that, one of the results is it's better satiation and hunger control. But imagine if you're in the winter and food availability is very low. You kind of want the opposite things to happen. You want your insulin sensitivity, you want a little bit of resistance, because you might be going without glucose for quite some time. You want to upregulate inflammation, because you might have to eat some dodgy things if food isn't available. And then you want your gut junction to expand. And this may seem really counterintuitive, but your microbiome is still going to need things like butyrate, which is one of those short chain fatty acids. It needs a source of that. And so it starts using the lining of the gut, and it starts fermenting that so that it can generate like minimal butyrate. So that's kind of why I think it happens, and why I think the switch is so fast. It's like I personally think it's like a survival switch.
That's amazing. Like, well, the leaky gut thing, or the tight junctions, right? The leaky gut's the kind of the colloquial term for it. Well, so this is where like our work ties together, is because I will talk about how, I've got the research on it showing that like toxic bile and vitamin A will increase, they'll damage the tight junctions, make leaky gut. Well, what does soluble fiber do? Soluble fiber literally the stuff so some of it would get digested and broken down and fermented by the gut bacteria and be food for the gut cells, right? And repair that. But also the stuff that is not digested and fermented by the gut biome is grabbing onto adsorbing bile and helping you carry bile and vitamin A, because the vitamin A is in the bile. So we grab onto that, and then it helps us poop it out. So in two ways, it's like what we do, right? We try to remove the toxins and facilitate the removal of stored toxins, and then put in the nutrients that the body needs to fix itself. And that's literally all of what soluble fiber is doing. It's providing nutrition to the biome. It's helping get rid of toxicity. And so we see these things from different angles, but they all make sense.
Oh, that's so cool.
So yeah, the gut biome thing, and we have a lot of people. For those of you who maybe are still carnivores and you're watching this, or you are recovering carnivores because carnivore didn't fix everything you had, or maybe you had a honeymoon phase and now you're here. One of the things we do is we start adding soluble fiber in, even if it's just because as you've seen, Greg, I'm sure a lot of carnivores or low carbers, when they try to come back to carbs. Well, let's see if you have an explanation for this. I want to hear yours. what is the problem that, let's say, low carbers or keto or carnivore people have when they come back to eating carbs after not eating them a long time?
Oh gosh, I
You've
think it
talked
could
about
be,
this before.
yeah, I think it could be a lot of things. But yeah, I think the fiber would be a big one because the microbiome is going to shift over time, and it just wouldn't have the right taxa to really break that down in the way that is necessary. I also think that one reason why people may go carnivore is they don't do well with carbs to begin with.
Yeah.
And they just have trouble processing them. Maybe causes glucose problems, things like that, which can be a real problem. But I would say that going low carb or going carnivore may be like a band-aid to that solution. Is probably not going to be solving the root cause of that carb issue.
Yeah, we've had people where they've been on the program, or they just weren't sure, and they were like, or they go and they, let's say I don't want to call it cheating, but let's say they go and they do a lot of stuff that they wouldn't normally do on the diet, and then they feel terrible.
Yes. Yeah.
So some people will do a carnivore thing, like just meat for a while to kind of reset, and I think that's fine. I don't have any issue with that, but I mean, we're all about, like you were saying about the tolerance of carbs. This is one of the things that people, when they learn about our program and they see that we're not a protocol, they like, because I'm like, I do best on fruit carbs and not a ton of grains and not a ton of beans. And I've just learned that. I mean, I remember now genetically, I remember my dad saying, he's like, son, whenever I want to lose weight, like if I get too fat, he's like, I just eat meat and fruit and vegetables, and it all just comes right off. And back then I thought I was smarter than I was. And I was like, it can't be that simple, Dad. It's got to be more complex. And as I got older and I realized he was telling me what he observed.
Yeah.
And that it worked for him. And like, I always tell people, like, what you digest the easiest is really what is working the best for you. And I can tell you that I digest fruits and meat amazingly. And if I have too much grains or beans, for me, I just start to get a little more bloaty, and I don't feel as great. So I tell people
we're all very different, and we can handle things differently. Some people can handle rice, some people can't, because they lack the ability to break down amylose. So yeah, we're all really different. Diets can be very individual.
Yeah. So like even fiber tolerance, like some people do great on tons of fiber. I mean, you must be doing tons of fiber. How many grams of fiber do you get in a day typically?
About 60 to 70. Yeah.
How much of that is soluble? Do you know?
I try to get about 40 grams of soluble. And I've actually done about 40 grams in a single serving, just to test tolerance. Yeah. And I can handle that just fine.
Okay.
But
I was doing,
that's not for everybody. Don't do that if you haven't had fiber. Introduce it slowly.
Yes. There was one guy on the internet, a naturopathic doctor. He said, if you're trying to introduce beans, he was suggesting just like 2 tablespoons a day for 2 weeks.
That seems like a really good idea
to kind of get used to it. And then I found, when I did bifidobacteria, I added some bifidobacteria to my supplement approach. That really improved my ability to tolerate beans. I'm not as good as some people at it, but it absolutely helped. It got rid of a lot of the gas and stuff like that. There was a time, I usually tell people on the program, I say for most people, 30 grams of soluble fiber is like, above that is where like it starts to get into diminishing returns. Would you kind of agree
absolutely
with that?
Yeah. And then a lot of the studies, if you look at what these subsistence populations are, which are the non-westernized populations around the earth, they're usually getting around 25, 30 grams of soluble. And they have like a total fiber intake of like up to 100 grams.
Like the Hadza, right?
Yeah, the Hadza taking 100 grams per day, which is crazy.
I saw 100 to 150, and I was just like, wow,
it could be insane.
That's bonkers. There must be turds everywhere.
Yeah.
So, but so I did an experiment when I was early on in the program, and I was thinking that soluble fiber was like the thing. I think I was getting about 60 grams of soluble fiber a day. I was doing beans and oats, and I think I was doing psyllium, like a tablespoon of psyllium 3 times a day. And boy, I was pooping a lot. But I started to notice like the bloat kind of feeling. I was like, I didn't feel like it was making me better.
Yeah.
I felt like there was a little bit more drawbacks than the benefit. And then I just ramped it back down to 30. And I was kind of like, this is much better for me at this point. Yeah. I'm probably not doing that much now.
And 30 kind of aligns. If you get, roughly 30, you're going to, more or less get enough short chain fatty acids.
Yeah. Yep. So, okay. So yeah, I had somebody commented beans destroy me after a few days. Yeah. Just so I do, like, if I did beans every day, I just wouldn't feel great. So personally, I do them like a couple days a week, and that works for me.
One thing you can try there too is if you can try cooling them and then reheating them, and that could help a little bit too. So that's something to experiment with. But what that will do when you cook the beans, the starch in there is going to gelatinize, and then when you cool them, that gelatinized starch is going to create this crystalline structure.
You're talking about resistant starch?
Resistant starch, yeah. And then what happens is we can't break that down. And so it will go into our microbiome undigested. And then that's what our microbiome will ferment. Cooking and cooling beans or rice can be a really good way to get some of that resistant starch.
Yeah, and one of the things I've made available to my people is called sun fiber, which is partially hydrolyzed guar gum. So it's already kind of digested. So it's basically just going in there as food for your guts. And I know people, since I've just mentioned it, we've been sold out of it for a while. It wasn't our fault. It's the company that makes it. They had production issues, but I am hoping to get the label in to the pouch maker today, and it's coming back soon. So and we have one of the few organic sun fiber versions on the market. So
that's great. Yeah,
it will be back. It will be back. So actually one of the things I wanted to mention that you said that aligns with what we do is, like you said, basically you were saying different people get along better with different sources of fiber, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so there are a lot of different subtypes of soluble fiber. So they're beta glucans, all kinds of different kinds. They'll all ferment down into like slightly different ratios of short chain fatty acids. So I think it's great to figure out which ones you do well with, because all of our microbiomes are different, and then go slowly introduce these, and just experiment until you can figure out what works best for you.
Yeah. And just think about, folks, what have you felt the best on in the past? One of the tests I do an easy test you can do to think about which foods you tolerate the best is think about which foods you could eat and go work out 20 minutes later.
Great test.
If you can work out 20 minutes after you eat something, then it's probably getting along very well in your gut. It doesn't mean you have to go and run sprints, okay, right? Because that'll probably make you toss up everything anyway. But if you can go and work out, somebody else gave me that at the gym. He was like, this was one guy's test, and I was like, this as you just noticed, it's like brilliant. It's like, wow. Because I know in the morning, if I have like a beef stick and 2 bananas, and I can go work out, like I can drive to the gym and work out, and I don't even notice it in my stomach. So the less, 2 things, if you can work out on it soon afterwards, and the less you feel it, the less time you feel it in your gut, and the less you feel it in your gut, the better you get along with it. As I've said, perfect digestion would be you eat something, and then basically you forget about it the whole time it's in you because you're not noticing it, and then you poop it out. That would be best. Anything other than that is either, could be stress, it could be whatever, but it may be just you don't get along with the food. And actually, since I'm saying this right now, since I'm giving tips, another thing you can do to track how well you get along with the food you eat. This is a tech thing. You have your food in front of you with your phone or whatever you want to use, but most people have their phone camera. You take a picture of it. Take a picture of the food. Half hour later, you take a picture of either a thumbs up, you feel good, or a thumbs down, you don't feel good. And then you can go back through your pictures and look at what you ate. And it, pattern recognizers, it gives you a pattern to recognize. I did this for a while, and I went back and I looked at it, and I was like, yeah, it's the same damn things I know I shouldn't eat. That was getting the thumbs down. Yeah. So it becomes very obvious. So those are just some tips on figuring out what you get along with, and know that if you do the program right, or like when I said I did the bifido, I tolerated beans better. So things can change. You can absolutely change. I always tell people, like, as Greg was saying about carb tolerance, right? Folks, if you could eat carbs as a kid without a problem, and as an adult, you've done things, whether you thought they were good or bad, and now you don't tolerate carbs, the carbs didn't change. Something in you, like your gut biome, changed. And so these things can be fixed again. Something, you broke something, whether it was your fault or not, directly or indirectly. You broke something, and you can tolerate carbs again. So don't assume that just because you couldn't eat something at one time, you won't be able to eat it again. Do you have anything to say on that, Greg?
No, not really. Just give that a thumbs up. And
okay.
Yeah, it's just experimentation, just finding what works. And I think that, there are all these opinions on, what diet is the best. And I don't think there is one. The best diet is going to be the one that works for you, that you can adhere to, that you enjoy. Because, eating food is such a big part of enjoying life, that you don't have, any guilt about, and that just makes you feel good. And there are tons of ways to get there. And as long as you get your macros, your micros, get some fiber for the gut, and you enjoy it, you are going to be in great shape.
Well, let me just add one thing to that. For people who wonder, where they say, does everybody have to eat a super low vitamin A diet? I say, well, people who, as Greg's saying, Greg doesn't necessarily do a low vitamin A diet, although as you saw with his fiber sources, he is in that way. But and I'm guessing you're not eating liver or anything like that, right? Yeah. So Greg may kind of in unintentionally be kind of on a lower vitamin A diet, but just know that, like, when we're dealing with, if you're really sick out there and you're starting this, like if a car is really broken, right, it's going to take a lot more work. So at the start, you may have to be a lot more restrictive than you are eventually. Like somebody who never really made themselves really sick with shots or medications or drugs or whatever, they're not going to have as many problems as people who, let's say they were born jaundiced and they were sick from when they were born. Like that's going to take a lot more work. So just know, when you do get better, you can expand your food list a bit, but you still have to watch the feedback, because if you start expanding it too much into things that maybe you didn't do before, you might bite yourself in the butt. You got to notice that and back off. So anyway, okay, so let's go into walking and movement and all that stuff.
Oh gosh, I think this is my favorite topic. Yeah, walking is just so good in so many different ways. But we are made to move. We are just made to move and move a lot. And so we've talked a lot about these subsistence populations and the patterns there. And one of the reasons why these populations are studied is because they have very, very low rates of chronic disease, extremely low rates. What they usually die of is stuff that we don't die of in Western society, which is like mostly infections. And so infections will take them out, at some point in time, but they, don't really die of heart disease. They don't have problems with insulin resistance or anything like that. And they remain functional into very old age. They don't succumb to sarcopenia like we do. They are able to function in society. So even in their 60s, their walking gait is not really slowing down materially. So one of the reasons why, and this is, by the way, this is a common thing across all these populations, is how much movement they get. It's typically between 15 and 17,000 steps a day. Now, don't let that intimidate you. If you are just getting started, we'll get to that. But I'm just talking about what we see in these populations. So, but the reasons why, and one of them is just when you eat stuff, it's going to cause a rise in our blood glucose. That's going to cause an insulin response. We're going to have lipids that we need that are going to be in our bloodstream. And one of the things that walking will do, or any movement for that matter, is it'll work with nutrient partitioning. So making sure those nutrients go to the right place. So that glucose in your blood, it's going to go into the muscle and out of your bloodstream. And yes, meal blunts blood sugar spikes. I think that's a link to this study. It was done on type 2 diabetics. And so they tested a 50-minute after meal walk against this really popular drug for type 2 diabetics called metformin.
You said a 50, 50?
A 50, yeah.
Okay, great.
And that's just so they could see the effect size. That's a pretty long walk, but it's just
had to make it big so they could see it.
Make it big. Yeah, exactly. But that 50-minute walk after the meal was more effective than metformin alone. So that's pretty incredible that just walking can have that big of an effect. It will do the same thing for lipids as well. So in order for lipids to clear, there's this thing called LDLR, and it works kind of like a dumbwaiter. So you can think of it going into the bloodstream, grabbing lipids, bringing it down into the cell. And so that's going to be activated, and you're going to be clearing lipids as well. So clearance is a big part of it. Another part of it is nitric oxide. And so whenever we move, we get these little nitric oxide pulses. That's going to relax the endothelia, keep them supple. And so walking will do that as well. That's why the Chimane, that's why they have the endothelia of these ultra marathoners. It's just this constant movement all day long. And then the last thing that it's going to do is it's going to build more mitochondria. And so mitochondria, you could think of them as like the engines of our body. If all of our mitochondria stopped working, we would die instantly. So it's going to signal the body to make more mitochondria. And that's really important because, you can imagine, what would happen if you just kept adding engines to your car. You could burn a lot more fuel. So that's basically what it's doing. And then it's going to improve the mitochondria quality as well. So you could almost think of it adding more engines and then making all of those engines much more efficient. So, it's accessible. You don't need any equipment. You can just go outside.
Yeah. Well, let me. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, please go ahead.
Well, I was just going to add that I was thinking about this the other day about one of the things we talk about in here is that to get rid of toxins, including toxic metals, we have to oxidize them, right?
Yeah.
Well, what is bringing more oxygen into the system and exercising? What is that going to help?
Yeah,
help oxidation.
Clearance.
So
yeah.
So I know from my personal experience, like I know the calorie in, calorie out people will all be like, well, you just increased your calories. But I know that if I have it's a half hour if I run and walk it, and it's about 40 minutes if I weighted vest walk it around my neighborhood. If I stop doing that, I will just slowly gain a little extra body fat, or 5 pounds if it's a long time, or more than that. And so I know that my buddy told me, who owns a gym, he was like, dude, if I don't get like low intensity movement for a significant amount of time in a day, I just slowly start gaining a little weight. And I was like, oh my gosh. So, and I really I just know that I always tell people, like, if you exercise is, I don't like to put it this way, but it makes sense to most people. Exercise is the best antidepressant that exists.
Yes, that's so true.
So I tell people, if you literally do not exercise or move your body, I expect you to be sort of depressed because you're not doing the most important. I mean, we are designed to move. If we were designed to just sit still, right, we could be a starfish. I mean, just sit there and do nothing. But we are blessed with the best movement capabilities overall on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to move, and that's how we move our lymph. It helps move our blood. It helps. You need movement to build your bones, like to send the signal to bones to become stronger. So whether or not you have the materials around to build the bone, you have to send. I mean, the reason we all look the same, right, is because we all kind of look. You know, there's babies, and then we all generally look the same as we get older, but we do look different, right? Your bones form from the tension of muscles pulling on them. Literally, your bones are formed in response to muscle tension. So if you don't ever put muscle tension on them, you're not going to form right. And you could actually degrade over time if you don't stimulate the muscles. This is the whole idea. I mean, just the simple thing that people can see is like mewing. And the chewing strong gum is actually literally reshaping people's faces. People have seen it here on my videos from like 6 years ago on YouTube versus today. And I wanted to bring up, I don't know if I brought it in. Oh yeah. I want today to mark something in terms of face shape. Since I'm going to tell people this, there is no affiliate associated with this. This is something I'm starting with. And if you all choose to go experiment with it, go for it. I have no affiliation with the company, but I think this guy I think Ken may have come up with something brilliant. I just got this. It's the Reviv mouthguard, Reviv. I think the website, Joe, if you want to find it and confirm, is Get Revive 1, O-N-E. But anyway, this is called a flat plane mouthguard, and it's really just holds some space between your molars at night. And supposedly your entire jaw structure can organize, and so your whole skull can reorganize. Now, I think Ken may make Ken's hoping that he's making some claims that it may fix basically everything. I don't know if we can go that far. However, those of us who have had really bad dental arch structures, dental palates, and all that stuff like that, or who have had orthodontics, this could help undo some of the stuff. So I just wanted to say that today marks, I just started using it yesterday. So if we see changes in my literal skull over time, that's what it's from. And if you guys want to try it, just pay attention. I'm going to give you one tip on it. He actually says that the more uncomfortable it is at the start, the more you need it. Like the more it's literally changing you. So if you're a whiny baby and any pain is not okay, I mean, I haven't worn this through the night yet. I just wore it a couple hours during the day yesterday because it was irritating my gums a little bit, which he said was totally normal. And so I just let it be normal. And he said, when it doesn't feel good, stop using it, take a break, and then do it again. I swear my walk was easier yesterday. My weighted walk was easier yesterday from it. So I just wanted to bring that up. That's just a little aside, but we can literally change the shape of our bones through movement.
This is really cool. I think I'm going to get one of these.
I mean, this was $40. I mean,
incredible.
And apparently these don't wear out. The other silicone one, just if you want to get, this is the Revive 1. They have the Revive 2. The Revive 2 is a softer silicone, and they say it's a little less aggressive on the gums. So if you want to wear it, I'm getting both. I'm ordering all three. I got this one first. I'm getting the 2, which is probably a little more comfortable for nighttime use. And then I'm getting the day guard. They have one that just like sits on the bottom, and it's not like the full like Ivan Drago mouthpiece. But I'm trying them all out. And actually I just sent Kelsey a whole set of them too, because I want people to try. So if you're watching this and you want to try it, you get a free month of support through their school group if you join it and you want to ask questions. And then there's also, you can get a whole year's worth of support on the school group too. So if you want help with it, I'm not an expert on it. Don't ask me yet. Go there and ask them. Okay. I'm just following the instructions. And he has a Substack too. You'll find his Revive Substack, and he's posted tons of stuff there. And he kind of goes over how people may have collapsed their entire skull by getting dental work. So if you're thinking about getting dental work, I'm going to do this way before I would ever mess with dental work. that affects. My son's in orthodontics right now, and I'm going, God, I hope this doesn't mess him up. But at least now I think I know how I can help fix anything that is affected negatively if he'll do it. Anyway, okay. So we got that. So so while we're on the walking and movement stuff, you had some other tips on things like I know on one of your threads about like there was a small little like treadmill like that wasn't the huge.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I love that thing so much. I almost brought it in. I was going to walk on it during this, but I thought it might be a little distracting. But I know one problem that a lot of people can have is, getting a lot of steps takes time.
Yeah.
And, oftentimes people just don't have that, especially if you're trying to get like 15, 17,000 steps. That's, a couple hours of walking per day. It's a big commitment. So if you work at a desk, one thing that can be really beneficial is using one of these walking pads. You can get them off Amazon. The brand that I use is called Sperax. I have no affiliation with them, but just a fan of their product. But you can just put this under your desk, and if you get a standing desk, you can walk during meetings, or just walk when you're working. And even just if you break it up into small little increments, even just 15 minutes at a time, it's incredible how many steps you can rack up, and you don't even really notice it. Last summer, I was getting 17,000 steps before lunch.
Wow.
It was just amazing. And, I didn't even think about it. I just come in to right where I am right now. I'd start working and walking, and before I knew it, I'd go have lunch and 17,000 steps.
Yeah. Wow. So the walking pad is different than a treadmill.
Yeah. It's lightweight. I actually have it in my living room right now. So that's another thing I like to do is I'll just get on the treadmill and sometimes watch a movie or watch a little YouTube. It's funny, my entire family uses it.
Okay.
So if we're kind of in the same room, in the living room together at night, like somebody is typically on the walking pad.
Is it powered or is it self-powered?
It's powered. The one that I have is powered. Yeah. And it can go up to, I think, 3.8 miles per hour, the one that I have.
But the one big thing about the walking pad is that there's no arms, there's no
arms. It's really
stabilization
low
things on the side of it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Really low profile, meant to be used at low speeds. So those things are just great. And they're such low profile that you could probably slide it under your couch. Or another thing that I do at my desk is I'll keep a chair here, but I'll just turn it on its side when I'm not using it.
Oh, the pad.
The pad itself. Yeah. Okay. So they're small enough to do that. And it's not like they're super light, but they're light enough to move around.
Yeah. I have a standing desk here and so I'm sitting there thinking about it. I tried back in the day, getting a treadmill to put at my desk on, like to make a walking desk, but I used one of those self-powered ones, and that absolutely did not work.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't smooth enough that like I had to constantly change the force I was adding to it, and I had to put a belt around me, or else because you had to have it on an incline, and I was like, this was terrible. The walking pad sounds actually like a legit thing. My only issue I found with walking treadmills is, for whatever reason, as you were saying, you wanted to focus, right? It takes a bit of your working memory to be like walking at the same time.
Yeah.
So
it takes a little while to get used to it. Where I found it really shines, and this may sound super strange, but it's during meetings. So if you're on like a virtual meeting and you're walking, for me, like walking and talking is like so easy. And actually I feel like it's easier for me to pay attention if I'm walking rather than sitting. At first, I thought people were going to think it's weird and be like, what are you doing? Are you on a treadmill? But what I noticed was that people were really curious about it. They're like, oh, you're on a treadmill right now? That's pretty cool. Yeah. And at this last company that I was at, what I noticed is, when I started, I'd be walking during meetings. And when I left the company, when I was in meetings, like 3 or 4 people would be walking. Nice. So it can be contagious.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are really they feel the need to move their bodies more. It's just our created environment these days makes it so it's not as easy as it should be or could be. So, take the stairs, folks, park further away. Like those things add tons of steps.
Yeah. Park further away, take the stairs. If you're on a call, like just going outside and walking.
Yeah.
And, at first it can seem like a chore, like actively thinking about going and walking. So the more I think you can get into these little micro habits, like when I'm at the store, I'm going to park in the back, or when I get on a call that doesn't require me to be in front of a screen, I'm going to go walk around the block. So you can just have these triggers that you assign, and then before you know it, it becomes habit.
Yeah.
And if it does feel like a chore when you're out walking, that will change over time, and you'll get to a point where you just love it and you just look forward to it. Like after I get out of this call, I'm going to go on probably about a 7-mile walk that I like to do every day. I walk from where I am right now in Fremont in Seattle to downtown Seattle and back. And yeah, it's the thing I look forward most to every day.
Awesome.
So you'll get there over time.
Yeah. Anything exposure therapy, folks. Exposure therapy works for everything. Basically, just the more you do it, the easier it gets, which could be you start to like it more. I was realizing, and those of you out there who may have some mild or undiagnosed ADHD or whatever, I'm going to tell you that like going for a walk in the morning will help. Not doing screens, not doing cheap dopamine things in the morning, but doing expensive dopamine things, which would be like exercise. Go for the walk or do it in your house. Do something to move your body in the morning, and the rest of your day you will feel better, be better, get more done. Like you need to set your day right. And I'm doing two things now. I realized I fell into, we all fall into little what do I want to say, dips for a while. And I wasn't doing my walking. Because every year it seems like I slip out of it when it starts to get cooler out and it starts to get darker earlier. And I'm just like, I don't want to walk. So
just want to stay in bed.
But I was noticing my productivity was sucking and my mood was not as good. And I finally went, you know exactly what's doing it. You're not doing your walk. And so now I've started making sure I'm doing it. I'm pushing it back a little bit in the day. So I do it we still have sun here. We're blessed. Like I still have I can go out shirtless in the middle of the day right now and it's totally fine weather. It's like 86 or something.
I'm envious.
It's great. So that I have the benefit of here. So I can complain about the early morning, but I can't complain about the middle of the day. But what I started doing as an expensive dopamine thing in the morning, this is something else I'm trying. No affiliation. Have you heard of Boss Rutan's O2 trainer?
Is that the
mouth, the thing?
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah. So I got that and I loved that it was, so there's a lot of breathwork stuff out there. And I've talked to Rome about breathwork here too. And I got this. Well, Kelsey bought it. She realized she wasn't going to use it. So she sent it to me and I was like, I'll use it. Cause it's like 30 reps a day, 30 breaths a day. I was like, who can't do 30 breaths a day?
Right.
And it fit into my mental state of like, I like working out. So it's like sets and reps. So if I just have one set of 30 reps and then there's two different exercises that you alternate days on, I was like, this is cake. So that I do first thing in the morning now. And I really like it.
You've inspired me. I haven't used mine in a long time.
Yeah. It's just 5 minutes. Like, I mean, it's less than 5 minutes. They actually say 3 to 4.5 minutes. Boss says he does 5 because he's an overachiever. And I did it the other day, and you're supposed to try to get 30 reps in a max of 4.5 minutes. And I was at 30 reps in 5 minutes. So I was like, okay, we're good. I'm doing it pretty close to the way it's intended. And it was good. You start to feel the muscles, like your breathing muscles really, if you're doing it right, it really helps. So anyway, and that's inexpensive too. So that's breathing. So cool.
I need to go get, after my call, I'm going to go get this, put it right by my bed. That'll be my new routine.
Yeah. Well, I started realizing I was like, oh, I thought I would have to go out in the front area where there's other people walking, and the whole like self-consciousness thing. And then I just went, you know what? I'm just going to go in the back, like our little backyard, and do it right there in the sun, because the sun's actually hitting there. So I was like, oh, I can get some sun, I can get the breathing, and then it's all done. So that's really helped me with getting folks, moving your body makes your brain work better.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have any research on that? You want to go over that at all or anything?
Well, I know it increases BNDF, which is a brain derived neurotropic factor. So that could be one reason why. Another reason why is it shifts you more into parasympathetic state. So more restful rather than, kind of fight mode.
Yeah. And I want you to remember, folks, as I don't remember, what was your tagline on Twitter? It was about like lots of low intensity. What was your little description on your bio on Twitter?
Oh, I think it's I don't know if I have that in there, but yeah, lots of low level movement.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you just can't beat it. It's kind of how we evolved. Just expect a lot of movement, and kind of our systems were designed around that.
Yeah.
Walking 7 to 10 miles per day.
Yeah. So folks, he's saying like low intensity movement. So even though we're talking about walking a lot of you, we have a lot of overachievers in the program, or overdoers, people who do more than, they're always like doing more than is asked. We're not talking about race walking here. We're talking about walking.
Yeah.
Right. Just moving your body. Or doing things like if you were doing stuff around your house all day, vacuuming and fixing things and doing that, that's all great. I mean, it would be great to use your legs because they're the biggest muscles, but if you're active and moving all day, that's great. For those of you like the really serious chronic disease folks who come here where, like, let's say, Greg, I'll get people who will be like, a walk will put me in bed for 2 days. Like we have people who tell me our approach literally saved them from being bedbound. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, if you can't walk, folks, like one of the things you can start with, I've said this before, is you can get a little vibration plate, and just, start slow on that. As we say with everything, start slow. And even if you're starting walking, like start small. You could be walking around, if you're bedbound and you walk around your house to your kitchen and back, and that's more than you've been doing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
But the vibration plate can get your muscles contracting just a little bit, and also get your lymph moving as a way to start. Okay. So, or you can just do the big 6 lymph exercises, get those moving. You just want to get stuff moving in your body. And then as you feel better, we've seen this so many times, as you're getting better, your exercise tolerance will increase and your desire to exercise will increase.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say exercise, I mean movement. Like if you want to dance. Like if you want to do whatever, I don't care what you do. You have to like it.
Mm-hmm.
I do my gym stuff. I do the walking. I'm doing the breathing now. Like I don't have a lot of other hobbies. I mean, I may do shooting competitions, but like that's my thing. So if you don't like the gym, but you're like, I like going out, 2-stepping, go do that.
Yeah.
Like do it all night. Like have a good time. Doesn't mean you have to drink, but you can just go out and dance.
Yeah. Yeah. Dancing would be great. And find something you enjoy. Do it enough so that, you're going to be able to recover the next day.
Yeah.
And, you don't have to do a lot. Just do a little bit more than you're doing today. And enough so that you can recover and that you feel good about doing it.
Yes.
Because that's what's going to form that loop. If you feel good about doing it, that you did it, and that you got it done, and that it was more than you were going to do otherwise, that's going to, form this feedback loop where you're going to want to do it again.
Yeah.
So, don't set unrealistic goals. That's a really good way to fail, because if you make something too hard, you're going to be less likely to do it because, the cost is so high. So, I do the like 7-mile walk every day, but do you know where I literally started? I went on a walk around the block. Actually, I didn't even start there. Where I started was, and I've got a thread on this, but I started by putting my running shoes by the door. And then the next day I set I put a calendar reminder to do it. And I literally went on a walk around the block, and I felt great about getting it done. I wanted to do it the next day.
Yeah.
So don't feel like you've got to start at these huge amounts.
This is really important, especially for those of us, if you were an athlete before, like earlier in your life, and you were doing intense stuff and you got sick and you're not able to do anything close to that anymore, the first thing, I mean, you got to get over the ego of it and like be like, okay, so we're not doing that. Like, it doesn't mean if you were a gymnast, it doesn't mean that you have to do gymnastics to be fit because it worked for you when you were 14. Okay. So just the biggest thing that people will screw themselves up is this. I was the co-founder of one of the first CrossFits in Arizona way back in 2005. So, and I was back then even going, some of y'all are going too intense. I still want to have good form while I'm doing this. Like, I'm not here to ruin myself. I'm here to do fitness, and this seems cool. And I liked the principles, but y'all are bastardizing them to do it harder and faster and quicker. And that's not, anyway. So that was the whole thing. But the biggest group I saw come in and destroy themselves, like literally send themselves to the hospitals, was like ex-wrestlers. So they hadn't wrestled since high school. And they gained a bunch of weight, and they were maybe doing like manual labor jobs or whatever job they were doing for 5, 10, 15 years. And then they come into CrossFit. And the problem was they had the mental state to push past pain that most people would, because wrestlers are a different breed, right? But then they do these exercises and they would get rhabdo. They get rhabdomyolysis, where their muscles are literally disintegrating and it's clogging up their kidneys with myoglobin, and then they're going to the hospital pissing Coke color, and they could almost die. So, you know, those of you who were really intense athletes, high level athletes, or you just did a ton, first of all, not exercising, maybe you've seen this, Greg, people who used to exercise a ton and then they go to very, very little, it actually messes with them way more than like the mild, moderate exercisers who go to nothing.
Yeah. So
it's a big deal. Like the way you program your system as a youth, a teen, a 20 something. This is why a lot of, like, as an example, like the freshman 15 for ladies, when they go to college, like they may have played sports in high school or done a lot of activities in high school, and they go to college and they do nothing, and they eat and they drink, and then they see the results, like, because it's just their activity just died. Anyway, so let's go on to, was there anything else you wanted to add about walking and movement or anything like that? Oh, there's Greg's Twitter. Joe put up Greg's Twitter, so you guys can find it. But yeah, is there anything else you wanted to add on exercise before we go into the more fun topics?
No, I don't think so. I think in closing, it's probably the most important thing that you can do is just get movement in, and you know, just as much as you can. I don't think there's really anything more powerful than that. Yeah.
Did you post about the study of like people who didn't smoke and didn't exercise, and the smokers who exercised? Yeah.
Yeah.
Say some stuff about that so people understand how important movement is.
Yeah. So it was a study on smokers and non-smokers, but the people who smoked and exercised did better than the people who didn't smoke and didn't exercise. There is this, and that's not saying to start smoking or anything, right, obviously. There's this other study that is one of my favorites. And this was looking at, I think it was a cohort of about 6,000 people. And the people who moved from 4,000 steps to 8,000 steps had a 51% reduction in all-cause mortality. And when they moved from 8,000 to 12,000, there was a 63% association with reduction in all-cause mortality. So, I mean, if that were in a pill, it would be by far the most successful pharma intervention in history by a long shot.
Wow. Yeah. So folks, this is why like I said, moving is pretty simple. You just got to find something that you can do. The walking, we are designed to walk pretty much all day. I mean, that's what we're designed for. I remember the day Kelsey and I went to an amusement park up in Idaho, and I got 25,000 steps that day. And I was pretty tired after that. I was pretty tired, but just remember the rules on exercise, or the rules. If you feel significantly worse after your workout than you did before, you might have done too much. right? If you feel wrecked the next day or after, or then you probably did too much. Now that has to be tempered with, if you're lifting weights or doing strength stuff, you may be a little sore if you're new to it. I kind of like those of us who have lifted weights a long time, right? You kind of live in a perpetual state of mild soreness. And I actually learned to like that. It makes you feel alive, right? You're like, I did something. I'm actively doing something. So that mild soreness is okay. But yeah, well, while we're on the topic, now we're going to go more into the fun stuff. So Greg, tell us about your favorite forms of exercise and what you do and what you enjoy the most.
Oh yeah. So I think walking is number one. I mean, I could just walk all day. In fact, about a month ago, I was on a walk with a friend. I got back to my car. I'd gone 10 miles and I decided kind of on a whim to do 26.2. So yeah, I love walking. I could literally do it all day. Lifting weights. So I'll lift, probably 5 times a week. And then for recreation, I love paddle boarding. I live right by Lake Union in Seattle. And so paddle boarding is just so calming to me. I just love it. And I'm just getting back into rock climbing. I used to climb when I was in my 20s, but I'm just starting to do that again.
Awesome. Yeah, we've done a lot of similar things. The paddleboarding I'm thinking about doing, if I ever move up by Lake Kokolala, I'll get one and I'll be doing it. That's the plan. So yeah. So the other thing you've got on your Twitter page, you dragging your we can kind of hit 2 things here. You're dragging your apocalypse mobile.
That's right. Yeah, dragging that. So yeah, that was like when my friends and I work out. That's one of our favorite warm-ups. And there's just something about pulling exercises that just feels so primal. So that's one of my favorite things to do. And we always do it whenever we work out together is we'll do like forward pulls and then backward pulls with my zombie apocalypse vehicle.
Well, so let's talk about pulls for a second. Because I know, like, you've heard of the prowler flu, right?
No, I've never heard of this.
Well, so again, for those of you who are really intense into exercising, the prowler flu is something that was kind of popularized by the powerlifting guys at Westside, where they would push the prowler for their cardio, the sled. It's a sled, the weighted sled, and pushing things like this can very quickly, like, you feel fine after you do it. You can breathing hard and really kick your butt, but then like a minute or 2 or a couple minutes later, then you're vomiting. They call that the prowler flu. So we're not talking about, for those of you who have pushed sleds or pulled sleds or pushed cars or pulled cars, like Greg, tell me about like the intensity with which you're doing this. Because you're saying you're doing it as a warm up.
Yeah, we do it as a warm up. But we're only doing a few of them. So we pretty much go as hard as we can.
Okay. Well, I mean, hard, but you're pulling a car, so you're not exactly going fast, right?
I think I've got a video on it. I mean, you get going pretty fast.
Okay.
Once it's in motion,
Yeah, once it's rolling, yes, it is on wheels. There is that.
Yeah, it takes a while to get started, but once you get started, it's you can go pretty fast.
Yeah, and that's probably one of those things where you got to get used to it at the start, but then once you get good at it, you start improving pretty quick. And
definitely.
But if you take a break, you kind of lose it quick. Is that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Very specific, and it's so let's go into this. This was one of the first things I think I saw that interested me in following you on Twitter was your apocalypse mobile. So tell us whatever you want to tell us about that.
Oh yeah. So I don't know. I always wanted to have this vehicle that could just kind of survive anything and be pretty self-sufficient. And so that was kind of one thing. And then I've always had this urge to go on a big overlanding trip. So I've always wanted to drive from Seattle to Tierra del Fuego in Chile. And, but it'll be a while until I'll be able to do that. I have a 9-year-old. And so it'll be at least 9 years until she's out of the house. But I want to do it someday. But knowing that I couldn't do it anytime soon, it felt good to just buy that vehicle and work on it and start modifying it. I love technology. I love systems. And so it kind of like fits right in with my interests.
Did you make it EMP proof?
Not yet, but the thought has crossed my mind for the for the ECU.
I was driving along. There's a place in my city where I drive to the gym. There was an old Jeep for sale. And I kept looking at that, going, that thing has like no electronics in it.
Yeah.
And I kept driving by it, going, I kept thinking about buying it. It was the only car I'd thought about buying in a while. And then all of a sudden one day it stopped being out there, and I was like, oh man, I probably missed the opportunity.
I hate that feeling.
But yeah, I'd rather have a car where all you really got to worry about is gas rather than electronics in it.
Yeah. If there's an EMP, that thing's gonna go pretty fast.
Yeah, whether it's a natural one or an induced one.
That's right.
Yeah. So anyway, but so we're gonna link all these threads that we're talking about with Greg. So if you guys want to read them, they're on his X page, Twitter page. So we'll have them hopefully in the if Joe didn't already put them in the live chat, we'll put them in the comments and I'll pin that so you can see it. So let's do you need to go anywhere, Greg, or can we take a couple questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Let me look in the chat and we'll see what we got. We did have one super chat from Austin. Wife has low ferritin during pregnancy. Is there a brand you prefer for iron glycinate? Not particularly. It's the one with the least additives. And just so you know, iron glycinate or iron bisglycinate, they're the same thing. So if you find them, giving pregnancy advice is like a minefield, because now you're dealing with two people. So if she's had low ferritin for a long time, that's a liver problem. We fix low ferritin in ladies over time. Like women who have had low ferritin, and Kelsey had low platelets and low ferritin for a very long time, it's all back to normal now. Like these are liver problems. So that's what we fix. Throwing more iron at it. I don't know, but there was, Greg, you wouldn't have known about this, but we had a lady on the live stream who was doing the Love Your Liver stuff, and she kept having low ferritin, and her doctors kept increasing her iron pills. She was up to 10 iron pills a day.
Wow.
And she said she had a heart attack. And she was telling us this in the live chat. And I said, there was probably something on the day that happened before it happened that caused what we call a bile dump. So the liver dumped a bunch of toxic bile into the system. It leaked through the leaky gut and the poorly tight junctions, and then it went into her system and probably caused the heart attack. That would be our theory. And she said, yeah, I was in the jacuzzi when it happened.
Oh, wow.
So heat causes bile dumping. Heat makes everything in the body tend to work faster, right? Chemical reactions happen faster in hotter temperatures. And so she just had this bile dump and then had that happen. So what I'm saying, here's the thing, Austin, is if iron supplements during this time are not raising the ferritin, if you keep pushing it, you could cause more problems, because if people take more and more iron and it's not raising iron levels, it's deeply a liver problem and probably a copper toxicity problem, which also happens. You dump tons of copper into the system during pregnancy, and I've seen it on blood tests. So it's, you could start doing things like, you can do the red meat more. One thing she should do is separate her fiber and her red meat, or meat in general. If she can separate those two out, the fiber will inhibit the absorption of iron a bit. So if you're trying to get more from food, separate those two things. Same thing with zinc. Those are both what are called divalent cations. So they're both +2s. So you separate them out, and the fiber by separating them, you will get more out of those minerals than you would otherwise. So that's that. Greg, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that's really interesting.
Okay. Oh, and she's eating red meat and lactoferrin, etc. Yeah. So yeah, just try the iron bisglycinate. She could, I'm sorry. If it were me, if I were a pregnant woman, I would try the iron bisglycinate and see. The first thing you want to watch for is if she has an iron deficiency, it will help her feel better within days to a week. Like she will notice an improvement in her energy. If she doesn't have any anemia symptoms and she's got low ferritin, I'm not that concerned. That's a very important thing, folks. If you're going through the medical system and they say you have low hemoglobin, low hematocrit, low ferritin, and you look at the symptoms of iron deficiency anemia and you have none of the symptoms, And if you try the things they say to do and it doesn't help you, don't keep pushing down that. You have a liver issue. And that's why, as they say in Chinese medicine, the liver rules the blood. It's right there. So anyway, okay. So let's keep going. Oh, this was a cool thing because I know Greg is big on us, what we're doing about the MSG. So Greg, this is a little testimonial here. Austin added too, MSG helped him go from 126 pounds to 134 pounds within a few months.
Wow.
As an undertype. So we have a lot of people who are what I call undertypes. And this is kind of like, the worst state of the liver tends to lead to people to be underweight. And then the next stage is overweight in terms of being not quite as bad. And then there's normal weight. But just because somebody's normal weight doesn't mean they don't have a liver problem, right? But what we see is mortality wise, I don't know if you've looked into this, but people who are chronically underweight actually have the highest risk of mortality from their weight, if you will. Not that their weight is what's causing it, but just related to it. We focus on overweight and obesity because it's the most prevalent one around us. It's the most obvious one. And then everybody's like, they have this weird jealousy thing. They're like, well, you're underweight. I wish I was underweight. And you're like, no, that's not always a good thing.
Yeah.
But, so under types, we have a lot of difficulty. They have a lot of difficulty gaining weight. And so the MSG, being that it directly helps the liver, is helping a lot of our undertypes to gain good weight. So
wow, that's incredible.
good job. Good job, Austin.
Way to go, Austin.
So let's see. Oh, well, this is a good question that I wanted to get to. The difference between glutamate and glutamine, like the supplement glutamine. This is a very important thing because I'm sure Greg's been around long enough to remember the glutamine fads, right? Where people were taking 30 or 50 or 100 grams of glutamine to fix their leaky gut. That was the big thing. It was always in all the leaky gut protocols. And I've said many times here, leaky gut protocols don't fix squat. Most of the people who do them, they never fix anything. What is the biggest important okay, so glutamine and glutamate are both very abundant in the body. Glutamine is glutamate plus an ammonia. Okay. Too much ammonia is bad. That's one of the things with really high protein diets is they drive a lot of ammonia into your system, and that's not good.
Yeah.
So we're not saying meat is bad, but we're saying too much protein drives up your ammonia levels. Well, gosh, glutamate scavenges, as in grabs onto ammonia and then can become glutamine, which our bodies do use. But think about it, if you're taking glutamine, you're adding a glutamate plus ammonia to your system, and these things can break apart and add ammonia to your system. Whereas if you do glutamate, it can, if your body wants to, it grabs onto an ammonia and it becomes kind of like a storage, like a storing it out away, getting the ammonia out of the system. So it's not free ammonia floating around. It's now glutamine. So glutamate in general, this is why all the promises that people thought of glutamine didn't happen. And why we're seeing such amazing things from glutamate is because not only is the glutamate is food for your gut cells. Like 90% of the MSG you eat is taken up immediately by your gut cells. These same cells that we want to have the tight junctions and that are taking up the butyrate. And so we're feeding them directly what they need. So that's the difference. So I would not emphasize glutamine in your diet. I would emphasize glutamates. That's what I would do, because then we can get rid of some of the ammonia from high protein diets. So, okay. Greg, you have anything to add on that?
No, I never do that.
Okay. But yeah, the glutamate stuff is, we just come up, thanks to Kelsey, we just come up with revelations like all the time. And yeah, I mean, I think if I can find it, the problem is like people would ask me, is there potassium glutamate? Could we get potassium glutamate? And I'm like, they don't really make it. At least not that I've found. Places make sodium glutamate, but they're not making potassium glutamate. So that's too bad, because we could get potassium that way too.
That'd be great.
Okay. Okay, Dylan Black said, I'm sure you've already heard this, but I believe citrate dissolves all stones, so I would be doing both potassium and magnesium citrate. Citrate helps, right? The bigger thing would be to not have an excess amount of calcium in your blood, which is what we try to fix in the program, is getting the excess calcium from that's deposited. Metastatic calcification is what it's called. It's not enough calcium where it should be, like in the bones, and too much calcium in places where it shouldn't be, like the soft tissues. And let me add this, since Greg's here talking about movement. I used to have a group of kind of like, I'm going to call them over exercisers, because these folks were doing exercise programs where they had to devote 3 hours a day to their calisthenics and body weight training and strength training and mobility and all this stuff. They were
intense.
Yeah, and they had to, I mean, I thought about getting it. You had to send in videos all the time, and I was just like, this is crazy. And I kind of realized it was a lot of the people doing it were either obsessed with exercise or they were kind of just like family wealthy, so they didn't have to work, and so they had all this time to do it. But anyway, these folks, they would come in and I'd see their supplements and I'd see what they were eating, and their calcium would always be high, but they didn't suffer as much as I expected. And their calcium wasn't as high as I expected on a hair test. And then I finally realized that it had to be all the movement they were getting that was protecting them in some way from the things that I would normally see. So remember, muscles, when they contract, they literally use calcium to contract, right? So exercise would then be one way to theoretically kind of use up excess calcium. And then you're helping your oxidation to detox. And so all these things, and then when we get enough potassium, that also helps, and enough magnesium, those both help your calcium balance. And so, yeah, so that was one thing that I saw, like, real world about exercise helping people who I knew should be actually what I mean is, based on the way their labs looked, I expected them to feel worse, but they didn't feel as bad as I expected. And they were doing tons of movement. Like, that was what they called. They were movement people. Like, that was their thing. So just movement. So a lot of you people out there who go, well, why isn't this influencer falling apart, Dr. Smith? Because they do the opposite of all you say. Well, if they're like a fitness influencer, they're probably exercising a ton, and the bell will toll at some point for them. It does. The poison always wins. But youth and a ton of exercise, as you just saw about the smoking study that Greg mentioned, exercise is super protective. Whether we want to use the term protective or whatever, exercise helps reduce many potential problems. So that all tied in there. So, okay. So let's see. Moto J, if you're in the Love Your Liver program, I saw your comment about the difficulties with your diet. There's stuff I would post in the LYL, and we can kind of hit on that. So let's see. How much charcoal for rice soaking? Okay. I don't have there's no specific amount. I generally use somewhere between a teaspoon to a teaspoon and a half for anywhere from a cup to 3 cups of dry rice. It's just a big spoonful, whatever. It's not meant to be exact. Just make sure you stir it up at the start. And then when you're ready to be done soaking, stir it up again so that you can expose all the charcoal to the stuff that came out of the rice. So it's not just like a stagnant pool. Just stir it up again so it can grab on stuff. Okay.
Can you soak it for like 20 minutes? Is that right?
I minimum 20 minutes. People could soak it overnight. And just whatever you do, I mean, you need to rinse out that water. Like, don't cook it in the charcoal that's in there. Like, I mean, you probably won't cause any problems, but it's just like, if the charcoal soaked up toxins, just rinse it off. It does come off the rice. So you are still eating white rice. You're not eating like black rice. It's not, it rinses off. So, but yeah, to 20 minutes minimum. If you use warmer water, it will obviously accelerate the process because chemical reactions, go faster with heat. But we're not saying to cook the rice. We're just saying put warm or hot water in them, and it'll make the process. You'll get more out of the process for the amount of time. Yeah. So let's see. Let's see. What else do we got? Okay, St. Padre Pio said, I'm approaching 2 years since adding soluble fiber, still dealing with gut problems, thinking about adding in probiotics or potentially even a fecal matter transplant or a fecal transplant. Okay, first of all, before you go and do a fecal transplant, you need to make sure to research on the internet about people who have had problems doing that. Because you're literally taking somebody's biome and putting it in you, and if it doesn't agree with you, the negatives of fecal transplants have been underemphasized, in my opinion. Add another example, probiotics. Folks, go on Amazon and look at various probiotics. Look at the 5-star reviews and also look at the 1-star reviews.
Yeah.
And you will see some people say, just like Greg was saying, you could change your gut biome in 3 days just with diet. Well, imagine if you'll see in those 5-star reviews, people will be like, oh my God, I took this new probiotic and it fixed my IBS in like 2 days. And then you'll see other people in the 1-star saying this probiotic gave me IBS.
Yeah.
So FAFO with your gut biome, you start throwing things at it. First of all, go slow. Like I talk about, Greg, I don't know if you know this, but I'll tell people like open up that probiotic capsule and get like, wet your finger and get just some on your finger and take that much, because these things are all dose dependent, people. Like you can send in a little scout crew of probiotics, or you can send in the whole army. And if it's not on your side, you send in a whole army, you do more damage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you want to put in enough that you can assess what's going on, or go up slowly so you can see. So fecal matter transplant, go ahead. I'm sorry.
You could almost think of it like we all have like our own unique rainforest. So if you took your microbiome and you laid it out flat, it'd be about the size of a tennis court. And you could think of it as almost like this rainforest. Now, imagine if you introduce something new to that, it's either an invasive species or it's something that helps it, but you just don't know.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons I like, so soluble fiber may not have fixed it, same Padre Pio, but the other thing that I would suggest is the MSG. MSG has been shown to improve digestion in studies. So I would not hesitate on that. I would not hesitate to, if you start slow, but then you can go up the area of diminishing returns of MSG for the people who have pushed it is like 2 to 3 teaspoons a day. So that's up to 3 teaspoons is 1 tablespoon. So people have found up to 1 tablespoon a day for some of the more stubborn issues that they have. If they're benefiting from the MSG and they can push up to about there, that's about where most people have found that's as high as they need to go. So, but you remember, MSG is the food for your gut cells. Like, so is butyrate. So soluble fiber may not have been the ticket you needed, but MSG might be. And then also, if you're in the Love Your Liver program, you need to go into Kelsey's niacin section and look at the flush niacin enema. And look at that, Greg, if you probably haven't seen this paper, but there's a paper on doing enemas with nicotinic acid, with flush niacin. Wow. And the before and after pictures are insane. So it's just an enema, folks, with flush niacin. And it doesn't mean you flush a ton. It's not hitting you that way, but that's how you could directly. So those 3 things, you got soluble fiber going. Oh, that's the other thing about sun fiber, right? Sun fiber is not as, if you wanted to call it rough as other fibers, sun fiber is not as rough. There's no insoluble fiber in it. It's just pre-digested soluble fiber. So that might be easier. Or you can look into apple pectin or beta glucan. But let me just tell you, folks, if oat beta glucan, don't do the yeast beta glucan. So find oat like Nutrim. Beta glucan is like the most powerful soluble fiber out there, which is why you can find amazing research on the benefits, and why when people take it, especially if they're unwell, it can kick your ass. So just like lactoferrin, it's very similar in that way to lactoferrin. So just be gentle when you introduce things. Anything else you want to add on that, Greg?
I would say like a good mental model, in my opinion, for getting fermentation working in your gut. It's almost like building a fire where you have certain soluble fibers that are like kindling. And so this would be like inulin, or pectin's kind of like that too. So these are fibers that get fermented really quickly. So if you're getting if your symptoms gas, it's usually because you've got a lot of, it's called proximal, which just means that the beginning proximal fermentation. So in an ideal world, you should get pretty low gas, and that's how it's working pretty well. Is you're not getting bloating, you're not getting gas. Any gas that you get will be roughly odorless, and that should be kind of what you're striving for. But on one side you have the kindling, which is inulin, pectin, things like that. On the far end of the spectrum, you've got the logs. So this is slower burning, and that's like the resistant starches. So you're kind of trying to push this fiber down a pipe, or a fire down a pipe, is kind of the analogy. So if you add, gelling fibers to this, they're like a psyllium husk. That's going to slow things down. Yeah. So if you are getting gas with like inulin, you could add something to slow it down, like the psyllium husk.
Cool.
And there's a post that's called like the geometry of fermentation. And so I included
that. One of the ones you linked?
It's one that I linked. Yeah. But you can kind of read about where different fibers ferment in the gut and how you can kind of modify that fermentation geography.
Awesome. I may have to read that one again. I'm not a huge fan of inulin. Inulin never agreed with me. And I do know it can feed some nasty bacteria in the gut too.
It's very potent.
Yeah. It's like an energy drink for whatever probiotics get it down exactly. there, right?
Yeah.
So if the wrong guys get it, that's what I always tell people, like for better or worse. Like if you send food down there and it's feeding the wrong thing, or if it's just food, it could be for better or worse. And that's one of the things that inulin can sometimes. I mean, I never felt worse than when I ate like I was trying to be healthy in college, and I got a bunch of Jerusalem artichokes because I read about inulin.
Yeah.
I ate tons of those, and I was just so bloated, and I felt terrible. I was like, I'm never doing this again. And then other supplements I took that had inulin in with them, and inulin and like FOS added. I was like,
oh geez. Yeah. That's not kindling. That's like gasoline.
So yeah, so you may want to read that thread on that Greg mentioned, the geometry of, what was it?
Geometry of fermentation. Geography of fermentation.
Or geography of fermentation.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So then these are the threads that got us really, together on this stuff. He was just explaining things from a different perspective that I hadn't thought about. So this is great. Let me pull up the chat again. Let me look. St. Padre Pio said, thoughts on fecal matter transplant pills for dogs? I have no idea. I mean, we've seen people in the Love Your Liver program their animals are doing very well often on what we consider a low vitamin A diet, which is where they're doing lots of meat and maybe some sources of soluble fiber or charcoal or some sort of binder to go in. And as long as the dogs are pooping well, you can kind of look into what we call the BARF diet, the bones and raw food is what it's called. So you're giving your dog bones and you're doing meat. And dogs do really well on this. Don't give them the organs unless you're doing muscle organs like heart. So if people say, well, is a heart an organ meat? And I say, no, it's a muscle. I mean, literally it's a muscle. I don't call it an organ. So anyway, so if anybody who's ever asking, if you're talking about organ meats, but it's a muscle, which technically, like tripe, small intestine, it's smooth muscle. It's not like your liver or your kidneys. So I'm not encouraging eating those, but I'm saying if you decide to, you want to go have, you're Hispanic and you want to go have menudo or whatever, I'm not that worried about it. So, but yeah, animals are doing really well with these general approaches, and that you can find people on the network who are talking about it. But so they add tons of vitamin A to animal foods, and now they're adding blueberries and sweet potatoes and spinach and all this crap that dogs and cats would never eat, and they wonder why they're all getting sick. So don't do that. Okay. Where else were we? Oh, somebody just mentioned the meat sweats. And so meat sweats, if you don't know, is when you eat tons of meat. Like let's say you go to a Brazilian steakhouse, all you can eat, and you're just eating tons of meat. And people get they get very, very sweaty after that, and they can't sleep because they're hot and they're sweaty and all that stuff. This is likely ammonia poisoning. This is just likely excess ammonia in your system. Exactly what we're talking about. So that's probably what that is. Just wanted to throw that in there. Let me see. I don't know that we're going to be able to get through all these questions. Oh yeah. Joe posted the getreviv.com, GETREVIV.com. So there's no E on the end. Okay. Susan Stewart added a little tip that she knows about. She said, I know 2 women personally who corrected low iron in pregnancy by eating, quote, pig's blood. Chinese markets looks like pink tofu. You put it in soups or broth. It works. Classical, traditional Chinese medicine, not LYL. Yeah, you know, I'm always after things that work. If that needed to happen to work, I mean, it's something you could try. Am I advocating it? Not necessarily, but yeah. Of course, somebody saying Padre Pio, I knew somebody was going to bring this up. Not the EMF on the walking pads. Do you know anything about the EMF on those things, Greg?
Oh gosh, I don't know. That's a really good question. I hadn't really thought of that. But it's probably something I should look into. I would guess, and I don't have anything to back this up, but I would guess the walking itself would probably outweigh on the risks of EMF.
Yeah.
But that's just a guess.
Generally, anything with a motor is going to have, I mean, motors make electromagnetic fields. They do.
Exactly.
You can't get away from that. Your dryer's making an EMF, your washer's making an EMF. Anything that's spinning is making an EMF. So that's, yeah, the question is whether it's worth it or not. You know, if it were me, I'd have one of the EMF solutions things. Sarah's link is down in the info box. I get one of the EMF solutions things. I'd have that on the cord. I got Sarah's stuff all over my house, the EMF solution stuff, and I highly recommend it. Somebody mentioned stationary bike could also be a solution.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Just the thing you got to know about stationary bikes is there's a lot of pressure on your perineum, your taint, for a long time if you want to be on them a long time. So you may want to look into some of those seats that look like the two butt cheeks where you don't have the front thing up on your perineum. You just have to deal with you're sitting on something on your perineum for a long time. And it's known in endurance cyclists and people who do a lot of cycling that like guys' penises will go numb and possibly get like nerve damage to their genitals from sitting on that for so long.
Prostate issues too.
Yeah.
Those
so
split seats are great. I have one on my, have one on my stationary bike. They're awesome. Yeah.
So yeah, those look for split seats, or, you know, just make sure that you're taking some pressure off your perineum on that. So, Joe asked, so we've been talking about motion. What about isometric exercises? Go ahead.
I don't know exactly kind of the effect, but I would think that, you know, anything is going to be great. And, you know, isometrics would be pretty awesome to do at your desk. You know, you're not in the gym. I would think that doing isometrics will be better than not doing them. I feel pretty confident in saying that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Especially if you're starting. Well, so I want to add, I mean, if you're starting somewhere or if you just want to do isometrics, I mean, the thing about isometrics is the challenge with them is it's how much effort you want to put into it. Like you have to create the effort. It's not you having a 10-pound dumbbell and you have to lift it. It's that, do you want to push against yourself or the wall or whatever with 10 pounds of resistance or more? So the effort in it is totally determined by you. So that's the challenge with isometrics. And the other thing, I think isometrics would be good, especially for those of you who are really tired or like fatigued or chronic fatigue or bedbound or whatever. Isometrics are a great way to start. And the other thing you could look into is the old school bodybuilding muscle control, like where they were trying to like isolate certain muscles and they were actually getting very skilled at being able to contract certain muscles. But it's just, think of it as it's only as much effort as like bodybuilding posing, if you will. You don't have to do it like full on double bicep. You're just trying to gain control of these muscles. And in that way, if you haven't been using your muscles in a while, it would be a good way to wake them up. There, you can look up like old school muscle. You look up muscle control PDF, and you can probably find free ones on the internet of like old school guys. So those would just be ways to start. I now, in my training, whenever I can, in my exercises, I am often, this is kind of the setup for many of my exercises. I'll do a certain number of reps of an exercise. And then like, let's say I was doing bicep curls on a cable machine. And then I get to the end and on the last rep, let's say I did 8 reps. I will hold it at the top for 8 seconds. And then I will do a slow lowering for 8 seconds. And if the exercise is suitable, I may even do a hold at the bottom, at the fully extended position. Bicep curls don't really lend themselves to that. Not every exercise lends itself to all the pauses, but you could do, so there's a hold at the top, there's a slow lowering, there's a hold at the bottom, and then there's potentially, even if you're really into it, you could do like a slow raising it, a slow concentric. So you can just add these things at the end of the set. My son watches me and he's always really impressed. He's like, Dad, that's crazy. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm only doing 1 set per exercise though. So I don't mind putting in some.
So you're going to failure.
Well, I actually never go to failure. I actually tell people, like, I don't think failure is good. Because I don't want to fail in the middle of an isometric. Like that that sounds rough. But yeah, so I just do 1 set, but like I went up from, let's say I was doing these kind of sumo dead dumbbell deadlifts the other day, where I do the pause and I do the slow lowering and I hold it right above the ground for like 8 seconds. So I just go up by a rep. So, but if you go up by a rep, then you go up by a second, because of that, and then you're counting to yourself. So it's just, I really like it, because if I'm only doing 1 set, it helps me get a lot more, if you want to call it time under tension, it just helps add something to it. And I feel, if you want to know if you own an exercise or not, can you hold the positions in it, and can you do it slowly? That's how you know you own a weight at a certain exercise. And so every exercise I'm doing, I'm literally training to own that weight in that movement. And so, as opposed to jerking through the areas of it where you're weaker, it just doesn't allow that, especially if it's on the end of the set and you're doing slow reps. Like, there's no cheating in it. So I'm very much like that. I don't. That's why I got ostracized from CrossFit, because I was like, these people's form sucks. They're going to destroy themselves. And they were like, that's not what we're about. And I'm like, well, forget this. I'm out of here then. And then people will joke about CrossFit is like the chiropractors and the orthopedic surgeons and the physical therapist's best friend, because it drives so much business their way.
Oh my gosh. A funny story on that. So there's a CrossFit gym right by where I live. And right next door, there's a physical therapy place. You go half a block, there's another physical therapy place. You go another half a block, there's another physical therapy place.
Yeah. Yep. And I was going to medical school. So I was like seeing this and I was going, this ain't working. Like, you can't take people who have terrible movement patterns and then throw them into 100% intensity every day. And then they're not even getting to practice the movements. They're doing like different stuff day to day. I'm like, how you can't get good at it that way. And you're just going to push the pedal to the metal every day. Like, anyway, I got into it because I liked how they mixed all these modalities and they were, pushing stuff. But the early CrossFit Journal was very much about form and about doing things right. And then over time, it just devolved. And that's when I got out of it. So, okay. Yeah, Boss, if you're looking for the O2 trainer, if you're on YouTube, you can just search O2 trainer, or you can look up Boss Rutten, BAS. And then the next word is RUTTEN. You'll find tons of his stuff on it. I think it's great. I'm going to do it right after we're done here. Okay, so let's see. Oh, somebody asked what kind of watch I use to monitor your steps. Do you use any wearables, Greg?
I just use my phone.
You just use phone? Okay.
Yeah, I kind of stopped using wearables. I had in the Oura Ring, which I loved, but I kind of loved it a little too much. And I started getting a little too obsessive about my sleep score. And I noticed that it was giving me anxiety to go to bed because I was stressing about my sleep score. So I stopped wearing it.
Let me give a quick story on that, because I have the same thing. I have a Vivo Smart 5, just so you know. Who was it? It was Reza Jalai or Reza Halai. Anyway, I have a Vivo Smart 5. I got it because I can turn off the Bluetooth. So
nice.
I only the only brand I know that makes this a regular thing in terms of watches is Garmin. So I got the Vivo Smart 5. Kelsey has had all the ones I've had, but she also has the Vivo Smart 6, which you can also turn off the Bluetooth on it, and it has a bit more function. So if you want crazy amounts of functions, the Vivo Smart 6 is better than this one. I just wanted something basic for tracking steps and heart rate once in a while. I just like to look at my heart rate once in a while. Now, on the sleep score thing, for those of you who are looking at sleep scores, when I first started wearing this and I was looking at my sleep scores, at first they were great. Maybe you had this too, Greg.
Mm-hmm.
As I got more anxious about it, they got worse and worse And I was going, what is wrong with me? And then I just did a quick, okay. So like I say, when I say I use ChatGPT is just a glorified search engine. That's all I use it for. I'm not using it for anything else. But I went into it and I said, is it possible that wearing a wearable and looking at your sleep score can make your sleep worse? And it was like, oh yeah, absolutely. Like people get anxious about it. So I don't know what I did, but I went along and I just suddenly, I stopped wearing it for a while because I was like, I can't do it. It's not good for me. And then suddenly I just went, I'm going to wear it and I'm just not going to care.
Oh, that's cool.
And I thought, if I check it, I check it. If I don't check it, I don't check it. So it didn't turn into me like waking up at, 5 or 6 in the morning going, what's my sleep score? Like I just had to turn it out of that. Just like I had to turn away from like the cheap dopamine in the morning, like not checking Instagram like in the morning for people messaging me there, because then that drags you in. So it's like cheap dopamine first thing in the morning is the worst thing you can do. Mm-hmm. And this was a cheap dopamine thing, but it was a bad one. Now I got the Ring-Con because I thought I wanted to get some more. The Ring-Con is another brand of ring, like the Oura Ring, and it's got a lot more extensive sleep apnea type monitoring. And that's why I got it, was because I'm not going to go to a lab. I'm not going to sleep in somebody else's bed. I was like, I'll just get something at home and I'll just see what the deal is. I got the Ring. I forget, it was the more expensive Ring-Con, and you can turn off the Bluetooth on it too. That was a requirement. But I can feel that on my finger.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what kind of electronics are going on in it, but even when the Bluetooth is off, I am constantly aware of it on my finger. And I finally just said, screw this. I'm not wearing it. I have a little bit of things, like I have things about shoes being too tight on my feet, like, the ring, when I could feel it, I was just like, no, I'm not wearing this. So
I noticed that too. I'd wake up and I would have taken it off in my sleep without remembering it.
Yep. You get angry with it. Like this Reviv, like for now, it's uncomfortable enough on my gums in those early stages that I was like, I can't even sleep in it yet. I'm not even going to try, because it's a little achy. So I just don't. I wear it during the day and then I'm fine. I actually worked out in it. I walked and I worked out in it yesterday, just because those were times when I thought I'd wear it. And I have this theory based on what I've read from Ken, that wearing it during exercise will lead to faster changes, faster shifts. It's just a theory. Anyway, let's see. Kelsey said, yeah, not long. Kelsey's Gem Fairy, so you guys know. She said, yeah, not long-term. Glutamine did not work long-term, only short-term looks good. Yes. So the good old, what we call the duration paradox, where things look good in the honeymoon phase and they're not good long-term. So, okay, let's see. Laura Lee added, there's something very strange about putting someone else's poop in your own body. It's true, but it does make sense. Like the weird thing is when they do these fecal transplant like analyses, when they're testing to see if it's okay for you, you want to know about the only things most of the time they test on it. They test STDs. They test it for STDs. And that's like the only thing they test for. And I'm like, that seems
that's it?
Inadequate to me.
Jeez.
Yeah. So that was not, I was kind of like, you got to test for a bit more. And first of all, you'd want to do it with somebody healthy to you.
Yeah.
And I actually had a thought. Have you heard about that thing where with the women who were smelling the sweaty shirts and the immune complement thing about which guys they thought were most attractive based on their smell?
Yeah.
So, think about that though, right? So if somebody has a different immune complement system to you, like, so if that's why women are attracted very much to certain men, because their immune systems are not the same, they actually complement each other. Well, then let's just say that you had this woman and the man do a fecal transplant, one to the other. What if you're giving them the wrong set of biome that's for the wrong immune system complement system? Do you see what I mean?
Absolutely. So, that's a great point.
That
study was really interesting because like birth control could change who people liked.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so they changed the immune system that was more similar.
I have personal experience with that phenomenon. And then, but the other thing about it changing women's preferences is that it's been shown since 1975 in the research that birth control raises copper in the blood and it raises vitamin A in the blood.
Oh, wow.
Which in our world and it's known as people age in general in the West, their blood vitamin A goes up and their blood copper goes up. So if we were to say, are people getting more healthy as birth control is one of, ladies, if you don't know, birth control is one of the things that too many of the women in this program say was the start of their downfall of their health. And then we normally associate aging with not feeling good. So we have these two things. We have birth control raising vitamin A and copper, and getting older, we see vitamin A and copper going up in the blood. Do those sound like they're associated with good things now? No. So stop believing the vitamin A people on the internet and the copper people on the internet. They're trying to get people to drink out of copper cups now, and you're just, it's terrible. Don't do it. I wish, why does my chat jump sometimes? Okay. Let's see. Oh, okay. Rory did a super chat. Heartburn from months on nicotinic acid. Okay. Good question. Well, first, Rory, if you haven't watched my GERD and reflux episode, go watch it. Sometimes, well, here's the general thing. Heartburn is reflux, but it's always bile reflux. There's always bile going back up into the stomach. It's not supposed to be there. So this is why your stomach is so weak to it. And bile literally eats holes in things. We've got research showing bile eats holes in the liver cells that make it. It eats holes in the tiny bile ducts in the liver. It eats holes in the big bile ducts. It eats holes in the leaky gut. And when it goes back up into your stomach and it eats holes there, those are called ulcers. If it goes up into your esophagus, we got Barrett's esophagus. So it eats holes wherever it goes. It's not supposed to be there. So whenever you think GERD or reflux, you think bile first. Now, there's two types of reflux. There's mostly bile, and then there's bile plus acid. In the research specifically, as I go over in that episode, bile plus acid is the worst because you got two things eating away at stuff. So what can happen is if nicotinic acid, flush niacin, folks, two of the biggest things that increase bile production and dumping in the program are lactoferrin and nicotinic acid, flush niacin. So if you're ever having issues with these things, if you're ever having you feel like you're detoxing, dumping too much, those are the first two things you at least cut in half. I would cut them in half to see if that reduces it. If it reduces it, then maybe I need to go further. Maybe you need to take a break. Generally, we suggest dropping in half and then dropping in half again just to go down, because you don't want to if you've got the flush niacin going for years, you don't want to just stop the help that it's been giving your detox system. You don't want to just yank it away because you could feel a little worse. So just drop by half again, and see what dose works for you. But yeah, could that happen? Yes. Everything we are doing to make you healthier is increasing your liver's ability to make bile. That's how your liver wants to get rid of the toxicity. So if you then are adding things on top of it that are making it go even faster than your body can tolerate, then we cut back. That's it. It's a good sign. It's a good sign that you're getting better, is that you're making more bile. But we have to temper that by not overdoing it. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Does that make sense to you, Greg?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then, somebody was saying, I missed hearing about the Reviv mouthpiece. What is it for? Just, you can find plenty on Reviv at the guy's Substack. So I don't know what the Reviv Substack is. Joe, if you want to find that link, it's helping reshape your palate and your skull, which then affects your entire body. So, okay. Hamza asked, is glutamine like MSG or what? You want to, Hamza, just go back and watch the episode if you missed where I talked about that. Okay, so I think that's it, Greg. I wasn't expecting you to be here 2.5 hours, but we had so much fun that
we did. Yeah, I can't believe it was that long.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that long, but that was great. So thank you for coming on. For those of you who want to read more from Greg, I highly suggest following him on Twitter. He is just, we showed his, Joe, if you want to show his Twitter again, that'd be great. His Twitter is at Greg Mushen, Mushen. Is that, am I saying your last name right? I want to make sure I'm saying
Mushen. Yeah.
Mushen, Greg Mushen. Okay. Yeah. So I was really happy that he came on today. I knew this was going to be a fun one because, you know, we were talking about how we were together on so many topics and we were just coming at them from different angles. So yeah, go follow him on Twitter. Read those. We're going to have the links linked in the comments, I believe, after this is done, and we'll pin those at the top. So then that's about it. Greg, do you have any? Oh, wait, I'm sorry, Greg, you were working on something.
I am.
Tell us about that before we go.
Yeah. So I've had a long career in tech, but now starting to kind of focus, my research on how to improve metabolic health. And I think that a lot of the measurements we have in place are pretty crude in terms of evaluating that. There are lots of different kinds of insulin resistance, and the standard tests don't detect that. So what I'm working on right now is a new test that can be done. It's actually just using a standard off-the-shelf test, but then it's adding some analysis on top of that. But it will tell you basically what kind of insulin resistance you have. And then that can help inform what type of treatment that you do. So yeah, currently working on that. Hopefully I'll have something out by early next year is my goal.
Is this like its own little piece of hardware, or is this a blood test that's already been done?
So yeah, it's basically using a standard oral glucose tolerance test off the shelf that you can get anywhere, and then just adding analysis on top of that.
Okay.
But according to some of the research, and this is based on a lot of research that is out there, but it can get pretty close to eugenic clamp accuracy. It's about 98% as accurate as the eugenic clamp. And what that is it's what they use in research. It's very, very expensive. It's like $3,000 to $5,000, but it'll get you close to that level of accuracy for, I think it'll be around $200.
Wow. Well, that's really cool. There's like, we've been thinking about some blood tests that we could do where that actually analyzes the retinal palmitate and the retinal esters in the blood, which has been done in research, but nobody's doing it in the real world other than one lab measuring retinal palmitate, one of the like 7 main esters in the blood. So we may in the future, if we get enough funding to look into doing some cool stuff like that, but who knows? So anyway, thank you for joining us, Greg.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You go and enjoy your walk, and yeah, we'll keep in touch. And then so that's it. Thank you everybody for coming. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you all next week. Bye now.
Take care.